Hello brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode here on Dangerous African Confessions HD. In this episode, we have the continuation of the story from our sister Naomi, where she shares with us her life journey, and how she met a man who promised her heaven on earth. Let's go and find out what happened when they went into the room and what happened afterwards. Without wasting much of your time, let's go and listen to the story.
So, the day came, when he said he was going to have sex with me that day. This was about 6 months after meeting him. I was happy. Why was I happy? I was happy because, even when he did nothing with me, he was showering me with gifts and money. And on top of it paying me monthly just as promised. Now when we were in the room, I had finished showering lying down on the bed waiting for him. He entered the room having this very frog in his hand. This was a frog that you will always see him with. The frog was in a plain vase, always sitting in his car. His explanation for having the frog when I asked earlier before this day was that everybody and the type of pet he loved to have, and that the frog was his pet. So, when I entered the room, he placed the frog on the bed and told me before he sleeps with me, the frog will have to enter me first. Meaning, the frog will have sleep with me first before he will. At first, I didn't want to go ahead with. But some way somehow, he managed to convince me. So, the frog entered me. One thing, is that when the frog entered me, the feeling was like a man licking you. Exactly that feeling. So, when the frog came, he now made love to me like I've never experienced before. The feeling was on top of this world. When after we were done with everything, he gave me 2,000 Ghana cedis cash. And wrote a check of 20,000 Ghana cedis and asked me to go and withdraw the next day. This very act that I agreed to do with him, changed my life. This was the beginning of my problems.
Please kindly subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload. Thank you and let's get back to the story.
After writing me the check, he asked me to leave the keys with the houseboy as usual. He left and promised to call me later in the day. I slept for a while and then I went to the bathroom to shower before I left the place. So, early the next morning, I went to the bank to cash the check. I gave the check to the teller, and after some few minutes of doing what they do, she came back to me and said the check did not go through. She asked me to call the person that gave me the check. At this point, I didn't suspect anything because this is a man who was giving me 10.000 Ghana cedis every month. So, when I came out of the bank, I tried calling his number, and it was switched off. I said to myself maybe he has low battery, so I will call him later in the evening. I called again in the evening and it was still switched off. The next morning, he called me and told me he had traveled to a place where network was bad. So, he had to switch his phone off. I told him about the check and he asked me to meet him in the evening. I went to meet him in the evening and he gave me 500 Ghana cedis and told me that he wanted to give me the money but an issue came up earlier and he had to sort it out with the money so I should go and he would transfer the money into my account. He asked for my account number and promised to send the money the next day. I asked when we were going to meet again. And he said that he was a little bit busy, so he will call me when he is less busy so we can have fun. The next day, I didn't receive any alert on my phone from my bank. So, I tried calling him, but the number was off again. It continued for about 4 to 5 days. I didn't have any other number of his, so I decided to go and check his house where we used to meet. I met the housekeeper and inquired about him. To the shock of my life, he told me that that house is for rent. They rent it out to rich people who want short stay. I told him that the man said the house belongs to him. But then the guy replied that then he lied to me about the house. He told me that that house is owned by one estate developer who uses his buildings for rentals. This was getting too much for me to swallow, so I left the house. What could be happening? So, this man is not the actual owner of the house. I told my friends about the situation and they told me to let it go. Since the man paid me for about 6 months. Days passed. And it turns into weeks, then a month, and I didn't hear from this man. I decided to let it go. One day, when I went to bath, I noticed some kind of rashes on my private part. This was strange, it had developed overnight. Because the night before that, I did take my bath and I didn't see anything like that. I went to the pharmacy shop and bought some medicine to treat it. What I realized was that, as the day goes by, the rashes were become big. Now the rashes were turning into sore. I went to the hospital to have my genitals checked. The doctors prescribed medicine for me. This couldn't do anything about the problem. In just about a week, every part of my private part was covered with sore. And the scent coming out of there was not pleasant. One of my friends, who we call our mother, because she is the oldest amongst us, asked me to tell her what really transpired between me and the man. I told her everything and she started insulting and shouting at me, saying, how could I be this naive to allow him insert a frog into my private part? All this time that she was angry shouting at me, it never crossed my mind that the man might have used me for rituals. It was when I asked my friend why she was so angry. That was when she told me that the man might have used me for money rituals. That is why every place of my private part is covered with sore. She said that knowing what he has done is the reason why he is no more coming to me. Her words were so piercing. But then it was the only reasonable conclusion. How on earth did I stood and watch he insert a frog into my private part? I guess the thought of me owning a house in cantonments and the money he was giving me each month didn't let me think properly as a human being. So, I asked my friend what we were going to do about my situation. She was full of tears. She said I shouldn't tell the other two about the issue. She promised to take me to one native doctor to see if he would be able to help me. The daughter of a noble Christian church elder, now heading to a native doctor for solution. This pained me a lot. I knew at this point I made mistakes. I had no choice but to go with my friend. I couldn't possibly go to my parents and show them what was going on with me. I didn't want to expose this other side of me to them. I wanted to go with my friend to see if I can get healed. Then after that I will pack my things and back to my parents. The day came, and we went to the native doctor's place. It was during our visit to the native doctor that he confirmed what my friend said earlier. He said the frog is what the man uses for his rituals. Any lady who allows the frog to enter her will not live to 6 months. Because the frog has entered me, they use my menstrual flow as sacrifice in the spirit realm. And as a result of that, when the 6 months expires, I will just die. My friend asked if he can do anything to help me. He said the only thing that can be done is for me to get anything that belongs to the man, like shot or something that has used before. This was going to be very difficult for me. Because the man himself, I can't find me anywhere. So, we left the place. At this point, I knew my days are just numbered. I was having like 40,000 Ghana cedis in my account. Knowing that I was going to die, I decided to send the money to my younger sister's bank account. At least, if I won't live to enjoy the money, then she should have it. One morning, I stepped out of the house, and I met this woman. She was dressed in all white. She came close to me and said, even though you've done wrong, the arms of your father are big enough to welcome you back home. I asked her who she was referring to as my father. She said, you know who I am talking about. The 2 fathers that you know, each of them is waiting patiently for you. She told me to listen to my heart and go back home. The truth is that I wanted to go home but didn't know how I was going to tell my story to my family without being judged. The woman held my hand and it was like something had passed through me. All of a sudden, I felt bold enough to go home. I asked if she would be willing to accompany me to my parents, because I was shy to face them. She said yes, and gave me her contact number to call her whenever I am ready to go. So, the day came and I went to my father's house with this woman. On our way to the house, I wanted to tell this woman what I have done. But she said, I know you have about 6 months to live. But if you do as you are told, the good Lord is capable of forgiving and reversing every curse. As soon as my father saw me, he hugged me and said, "Welcome home, my daughter. I miss you." When we sat down, it was my mother and father. My sister was not at home. I told my parents all that I have done. All the time I was telling them, I was on my knees. I begged them to forgive me. I went to my father and held his leg, and begged him to take me back for the number of months that I have to live. I told him, if I have to die, I wanted to die in his arms. This broke my father into tears. He said to me, I don't have to ask for forgiveness from him. For he never forgot about me one bit. For if God forgives me, everything that I fear will happen to me will never be. He thanked the woman. It was there that I got to know that the woman was a prophetess. She never revealed herself to me as a prophetess. Now, I am going through cleansing and directions. I will give you a follow-up to what is happening soon with me. Anything that happens to me, I give it all to God. At least I am happy my family has welcomed me.
I have this saying that life is sweet. And money is sweet. But you have to be wise when searching for money. It is not always about the end goal of having money that matters. But sometimes, the process through which we make the money also matters a lot, since it always determines the end result. These are not just stories for story's sake. They are meant for us not to make these mistakes our brothers and sisters are making. That's why we share these stories with you. I hope we've all learnt one or two from the story. Stay blessed and be safe. Thanks for being a part of this growing family. Kindly share your thought with us in the comment section below. And if you are new here, please subscribe, like and share.